You know, say what you will about the previous two solo installments or the inconsistencies of the X-Men franchise as a whole, the sheer dedication by Hugh Jackman put into the Wolverine character both behind and in front of the camera is undeniable, especially when you consider how crazy it is that, while everyone else has either come and gone or been established too recently to be gone just yet, he's still here going absolutely crazy on everyone just as he was all the way back in the year 2000, 17 years ago. 17 years! And in that time the man has been in literally every single X-Men movie, even if it's just for a simple cameo. I mean, not even a Bond actor made it to 9 films. And so when it was announced by Jackman himself that the next solo outing for the character would be his last as the metal-clawed mutant, you could not have blamed anyone for naturally assuming that, given the current state of the Hollywood machine and the most recent entry in the franchise, the film-going audience were in store for a giant event of theatrical action, huge self-sacrificing gestures, and a sentimentality heavy-handed enough to rival that of The Notebook. And yet, the strangest thing about Logan is that it turns out to be the most understated, intimate, and subversive feature you could have imagined in a time when overblown city-scale action brawls are mere precursors to inevitably far larger versions of the very same things. Logan is a brilliant movie, and what works about it is that it absolutely wholeheartedly commits to being the type of film it wants to. Not only does it feel like the most self-assured and self-contained picture adapted from a superhero property in recent memory, it might just be the most uncompromising flick the subgenre has offered since perhaps The Dark Knight, in as much as it is a movie before anything else. Speaking of The Dark Knight, you remember the days of Nolan's Batman, or Richard Donner's Superman, or Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, or heck, Bryan Singer's X-Men? The kind of days when these things stayed true to one overarching genre, wanted to offer weightier narratives and ideas than people might have expected, had directors that were brave enough to pursue their own styles of filmmaking with integrity, and showed a healthy disregard to any kind of franchise maintenance or fan service that has since gone on to poise so many other features within the same field. Well, Logan feels directly pulled out of that time period and quite frankly seems like an anachronism in 2017. You can rest easy in the knowledge that there's no holding back on the risks that have come with the director's vision this time, and nothing's been blindly watered down by the studio or reshot in fear of alienating demographics. The secret to how it's been able to get away with this turns out to be the simplest thing. It allows for closure, the very thing that all these folks are afraid of. Logan works because it's the last one. In removing the need for its success to dictate the next several X-Men features, 20th Century Fox has had effectively nothing to lose in letting director James Mangold and company do whatever the hell they want this time. And in this case, whatever the hell they want turns out to be a melancholic character drama that turns the violence up to 11 and is shot and paced like a Clint Eastwood neo-western. The film largely fills up its running time with lengthy scenes of dialogues between imperfect individuals, hovering shots of physical scars, sophisticated emotions that remain grounded and underplayed, and environments ranging from dirty motels to sleazy bars to old abandoned factories and family farms. Oh, you like sleek, overblown gravity defiance and big cataclysmic lasers being shot up into the sky in the middle of Manhattan? Well, how about an intimate, bloody and close-quarters brawl in the middle of the woods? The best X-Men movies seem to be the ones that mostly do away with any allegiance to continuity, so it seems fitting that, despite being set 6 years after everything supposedly being all hunky-dory at the end of Days of Future Past, our story finds us in an alternate future, specifically 2029, in a near post-apocalyptic Mexico where the X-Men and Wolverine are all but legend, and no mutant has been born in about 25 years. Now working under his birth name James Howlett, an aged Logan is living his days and nights as a chauffeur, and in his spare time assisting Stephen Merchant as Caliban, a sunlight-sensitive mutant with the ability to track down others of their kind, in secretly looking after and maintaining an ailing 90-year-old Charles Xavier, who now suffers from a neurodegenerative disease that causes him to suffer telepathic seizures with the potential to hurt himself and those around him. It turns out that Logan's physical change and decreased healing factor is a result of the adamantium surrounding his bones slowly poisoning him, and every day he hustles prescription drugs across the border to help suppress Xavier's mental condition. Soon thereafter, Logan gets introduced to Laura, an 11-year-old mutant whose power set and backstory seems strangely similar to his own, and once Boyd Holbrook, a cybernetically enhanced mercenary Pierce, comes looking for her, a cat-and-mouse chase soon begins between our three main heroes and Pierce's group of enforcers and scientists responsible for Laura's abilities. James Mangold returns this time as director after offering the second best attempt at giving us an action-packed Wolverine movie with some actual depth, and his trick here is for a top-to-bottom dressing down of the character. Within the opening sequence he looks tired, hungover, is stumbling across the place, and only summons up the adrenaline to finally cut loose and chop some dudes in half after a minute or so of being kicked around, and it paints the character in a brand new light that we've never really seen before. Those that worried about the initial news of Deadpool giving Fox the confidence to release this with an R rating can rest easy. Not only is Logan a far more grown-up film that recognises how blood and gore does not necessarily lead to maturity, but it's also one that's actively used it for a purpose, mainly to further explore ideas within the story and say something about the kind of man Logan is. Casting-wise, the film is perfect. It'll be no surprise to anyone, but Jackman delivers what is undoubtedly the most nuanced and engaging performance as the character. Thankfully, he's got a good script to back him up this time, and he and Stewart share what is definitely their most interesting dynamic of all the films. But ultimately, it's Dafne Keen who's the breakout star as Laura, aka X-23, offering a more feral yet vulnerable alternative to the shtick Jackman's been giving us all these years, and is a ridiculously enjoyable hostile presence once she's been allowed to let loose. And let it be known that when the time comes for her and Logan to finally share some dialogue, it's absolutely hilarious. Heck, even Merchant as Caliban manages to be a well-realised character with an engaging journey of his own. I can imagine we're going to hear some criticisms of the way the film takes such a minimalist approach to the villains, but besides Holbrook being a fun presence in his own right and Richard E. Grant doing a believable version of the evil scientist shtick, for me they work incredibly well in representing the persecution that the character just can't quite seem to get away from. And without spoiling things, while the reveal of a third opponent at first seems like little more than a physical conflict with obvious symbolisms, the contrast that comes with it offers a poignant insight into how the folks in Logan's life have helped shape him into something more than the mindless creature he was designed to be, and helps further support the thematic intention of the film by reaffirming the character's singular need for some goddamn closure with an element of the meta. There's a huge undertone throughout in how the film represents the horror in using Wolverine's image even after he's gone, and it might as well be Jackman and Mangold holding up a mirror to the executives at Fox going, "Please do not reboot this one." What works about Logan so much is that it isn't trying to be clever. There's no gotcha third act twist that cheats its way out of concluding the character's story, there's no epiphany in the face of death, no uplifting insights into what it's all been about and why. It's just a moody, straight-faced character drama of grit, guilt, and sorrow. And though the film does offer some kind of halfway positive ending to top things off, it's not so much a joyous occasion as it is a shared release. The most heart-wrenching example of this might be the way the film so brilliantly and unforgivingly uses Stewart's Professor X. We've seen this guy go from a nurturing and compassionate father figure and mentor to a delirious, confused, and often dangerous scatterbrain throwing sarcastic insults at Logan and dropping F-bombs left, right, and centre. And so when he finally does start to shed the tears and reveal his inner demons, the thing actively invites you to want to see some sort of redemption or peaceful climax to the struggle he's tormented by. Maybe it wasn't his fault what happened, maybe there's a lesson to be learned, maybe he can undo it, whatever, and then purposely disappoints you by making it thoroughly clear that this is not that kind of movie. Having said that, the feature is by no means devoid of optimism. While the involvement of actual X-Men comics and Logan's dismissal of them might at first seem like a backhanded compliment towards the source, there's a really nice touch in there about the escapist fantasies that we read about and dream up, having great influence on our lives with the potential to save us from our own harsh realities, and Logan's final act of heroism is at once both an earned moment of joyful awesomeness, getting to see him remind us why we loved the character as children, and a thoughtful reflection on the mutilation and torment that's dictated how little say he ever actually had in the direction of his own life. The central premise of Logan is that Wolverine is a tragic character whose violent past has only secured his future. It's a story about a mutant who, despite experiencing those fleeting moments of a civilized life, of family, love and friendship, never quite finds his place in the world, and as such it stands strong as the most viscerally upsetting illustration of all the racism undertones that made X-Men a property worth adapting in the first place. I know I've sounded off a little bit today on the current state of superhero films, and to clarify, I'm not for one second trying to say that the genre is bad or that there haven't been examples of really great films within it recently. But what Logan proves is that the constant franchising that Hollywood insists upon it can in many ways stifle the kind of potential creativity filmmakers have to offer it. Sometimes just a focused story with some heart and style, and that only has itself in mind, is enough to give audiences a satisfying experience. Logan, like its main lead, is in every sense of the description a one-of-a-kind animal. A beautiful character study, a lovingly made celebration of all the hard work that Jackman's been putting into this thing for the past 17 years, and a fittingly involving conclusion to an iconic character. Cheers for watching guys, and as always if you like this video, you can subscribe to my channel.